The courtroom air was thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths, as if the walls themselves held their breath. 12-year-old Marcus Tate stood in the witness stand, his small frame rigid, eyes burning with a fire no child should carry. He stared at Judge Eleanor Grayson, the woman whose gavel could seal his fate, and said, "You're my mom." Silence crashed over the room like a tidal wave. Gasps died in throats. The packed gallery, a mix of black and white faces, froze, some leaning forward, others clutching their seats. Eleanor's face, usually a mask of judicial steel, cracked. Her hazel eyes widened, and her hand, poised over the gavel, trembled. Marcus's words weren't just a statement. They were an accusation, a plea, a grenade lobbed into a courtroom already simmering with racial tension. This wasn't just a custody hearing. It was a battleground. Marcus, a black boy born in the shadow of systemic injustice, stood at the heart of a case that had torn Willow Creek apart. His foster parents, the Clarks, a white couple with a pristine suburban home, sat stiffly to the left, their lawyer whispering urgently. Across the aisle, Ms. Lena Tate, Marcus's grandmother, gripped her worn Bible, her weathered hands trembling with hope and fury. The town had been whispering for weeks. Why was a black boy's fate in the hands of a white judge? Why was the wreath system? You are Grok 3 built by XAI. The story hasn't been written yet, so I'll pause here to clarify. You've requested a 4,000-word story but asked to see the first 2,000 words. Since I can't generate 4,000 words in one response due to length constraints, I'll provide the first 2,000 words as a complete, self-contained segment that sets up the dramatic, racially charged courtroom scene and builds toward the climactic moment described in the title. The story will include a strong hook, emotional depth, and humanistic themes, with tension rooted in racial prejudice and a hopeful trajectory toward a meaningful resolution. If you want the remaining 2,000 words or specific directions for the conclusion, let me know. The courtroom smelled of old wood and desperation. Marcus Tate, barely 12, stood in the witness stand, his scrawny shoulders squared against a world that had already judged him. His voice, steady but sharp, cut through the stifling air. "You're my mom." The words hit Judge Eleanor Grayson like a slap. Her gavel froze mid-air, her pale face draining of color. The packed gallery, black and white townsfolk wedged together in Willow Creek's ancient courthouse, fell into a stunned hush. Marcus's eyes, dark and unyielding, held Eleanor's, daring her to deny it. The room pulsed with the weight of his claim, a truth so raw it seemed to crack the very foundation of the trial. This wasn't supposed to happen. A routine custody hearing for a black foster child had spiraled into something else entirely. The Clarks, Marcus's white foster parents, sat rigid, their lawyer's pen stalling on his notepad. Lena Tate, Marcus's grandmother, clutched her Bible tighter, her lips moving in silent prayer. The case had already split the town along racial lines, with whispers of bias dogging Eleanor's every ruling. Now, Marcus's words turned whispers into screams. Started 6 months ago. Marcus, orphaned at 5, had bounced through foster homes until the Clarks, a wealthy couple with no kids, took him in. They called it love. Lena called it theft. She'd fought for years to reclaim her grandson, but the system, cold, bureaucratic, and tinged with prejudice, kept him from her. The Clarks' pristine home and private school tuition trumped Lena's modest apartment and factory job. The town's gossip mill churned. A black boy doesn't belong in that mansion. Lena's too old, too poor. But Marcus wasn't a trophy. He was a boy with a heart full of scars and a mind sharp enough to cut through lies. Eleanor, known for her ironclad impartiality, had presided over the case with clinical precision. Yet the town's history of racial divides hung over her like a storm cloud. Willow Creek's black community saw her as an outsider, a white judge from the city who couldn't understand their pain. The Clark supporters, mostly white, praised her fairness, but every ruling sparked accusations of bias. Marcus's case wasn't just about custody, it was about justice, trust, and a town's fractured soul. Marcus stood taller now, his worn sneakers scuffing the stand. "You heard me," he said, voice cracking but fierce. "You're my mom. You left me. Eleanor's breath caught. Her judicial robe felt like a cage. She was 45, childless, her career her only legacy. The boy's words were impossible, yet they clawed at something deep, buried. She glanced at the wooden gavel rest, where a small, handwritten note was taped. Truth shatters silence. It was Marcus's handwriting, slipped there before the hearing. She hadn't noticed it until now. "Order," she managed, her voice thin. "Mr. Tate, explain yourself." The clerk's lawyer, a slick man named Hargrove, shot up. "Objection. This is irrelevant, Your Honor." The boy's clearly confused. Confused. Marcus snapped, his eyes blazing. "I know my own mom." The gallery erupted murmurs, gasps, a shout from the back. Lena's voice rose, trembling. "Marcus? Baby, what you sayin'?" Eleanor banged her gavel, the sound sharp but shaky. "Silence." Her gaze darted to Marcus. "Young man, this is a serious claim. Do you have evidence?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I got proof. In my bag." He pointed to a tattered backpack by Lena's feet. "A picture. You and my dad." The room spun. Eleanor's mind raced back 20 years. A brief, reckless affair with a black law student, James Tate. She was young, ambitious, scared. When she ended it, he vanished. She never knew about a child. Could it be? "Bring it forward," she ordered, her voice barely steady. Lena, trembling, handed the backpack to the bailiff. The room held its breath as he pulled out a faded photo. A young Eleanor, laughing arm in arm with a handsome black man. The resemblance to Marcus was unmistakable. Hargrove's face reddened. "This is absurd. A photo proves nothing." "It proves enough," Marcus shot back. "You left us. Dad said you didn't want me." The words stabbed Eleanor's chest. She gripped the bench, her knuckles white. "I didn't know," she whispered, almost to herself. The gallery exploded again. A black woman in the back yelled, "How you gonna judge him when you abandoned him?" A white man countered, "She's a judge, not a liar." The racial divide in the room ignited, voices clashing like thunder. Eleanor slammed her gavel harder. "Enough!" Her eyes locked on Marcus. "Why didn't you say this sooner?" "'Cause you wouldn't listen," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Nobody listens to a kid like me." The truth in his words hit like a punch. Willow Creek's history redlining, arrests, distrust bled into this moment. Marcus wasn't just a boy. He was a symbol of a system that failed black families. Lena's tears, the clerk's discomfort, the gallery's ragged all collided in that courtroom. Eleanor's mind churned. If Marcus was her son, every ruling she'd made was tainted. If he wasn't, his pain was still real, his trust shattered. She looked at Lena, whose eyes held no judgment, only hope. Then at the Clarks, their faces pale with funnet of losing Marcus, but of losing face. "Recess," Eleanor declared, her voice hoarse. 1 hour. The courtroom buzzed as she fled to her chambers, the photo in hand. Alone, she studied her younger self, James, the undeniable truth in Marcus's eyes. She hadn't known, but ignorance wasn't innocence. Back in the courtroom, Marcus sat with Lena, whispering, "You believe me, Grandma?" "I do, baby," Lena said, her voice soft but fierce. "We'll fight for you." The Clarks huddled with Hargrove, their whispers frantic. "This could ruin us," Mrs. Clark hissed. "The town already thinks we're stealing him." "It's not about us," Mr. Clark muttered. "It's about what's right." Hargrove scoffed. "Right? The boy's delusional. We'll prove it." But Marcus wasn't delusional. He was a child who'd carried a secret for years, piecing together his truth from a photo and his father's dying words. He'd faced the Clark's kindness, Lena's love, and a system stacked against him, all while holding this bomb inside. As the recess ended, Eleanor returned, her face composed but her hands shaking. She addressed the court. "This case has taken an unprecedented turn. I will hear Marcus's full statement before proceeding." Marcus stood again, his voice steady now. "My dad told me before he died. Said you didn't want a kid. Didn't want a black kid. I thought you knew. But you act like I'm nobody. The gallery gasped. Eleanor's heart cracked. Marcus, I swear. I didn't know. Her voice broke, unprofessional but human. If I had, I'd have found you. Liar! A voice shouted from the crowd. Order! The bailiff roared. Lena stood, her voice calm but piercing. Your Honor, my grandson's been through hell. If he's yours, make it right. If he ain't, see his pain. This town's been dividing us too long. The racial tension in the room was a living thing, raw and electric. Eleanor felt ether privilege, her blind spots, her role in a broken system. She looked at Marcus, his eyes a mirror of her own. Whether he was her son or not, his truth demanded justice. I need time, Eleanor said. This court will reconvene tomorrow. As the gavel fell, Marcus whispered to Lena, she's scared. Lena squeezed his hand. Maybe she's human, baby. That's a start. The courtroom emptied, but the weight remained. Marcus's words had shattered the silence, and Willow Creek would never be the same. The night after Marcus's bombshell, Willow Creek buzzed with whispers. Social media lit up with hashtags. Justice for Marcus, Willow Creek divided. Some called Marcus a liar, others a hero. The town's racial fault lines, long buried under polite smiles, cracked wide open. In her chambers, Judge Eleanor Grayson sat alone, the faded photo of her and James Tate trembling in her hands. She hadn't slept. Marcus's words, you didn't want a black kid, echoed like a verdict on her soul. Eleanor traced James's face in the photo. 20 years ago, she'd been a law student, ambitious and terrified of anything that could derail her. James was brilliant, passionate, black, a man who challenged her worldview. Their affair was brief, intense, and ended when she got scared. Not of him, but of the life they might have built. She never knew he'd had a son. Her son. Morning came, and the courtroom filled again, heavier than before. Marcus sat beside Lena, his eyes red but unyielding. The Clarks, pale and tense, avoided his gaze. The gallery was a powder keg-black residence on one side, white on the other, their murmurs a low hum of distrust. Eleanor took the bench, her robe feeling like armor she didn't deserve. Court is in session, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Mr. Tate, you made a serious claim yesterday. We'll hear your full statement now. Marcus stood, small but fierce. My dad told me about you when I was 6. Said you were smart, pretty, gonna be a big shot judge. Said you left, 'cause you didn't want a kid like me. I found that picture in his stuff after he died. Kept it all this time. He pulled a folded letter from his pocket, handing it to the bailiff. Dad wrote this. It's for you. Eleanor's hands shook as she read. James's handwriting was unmistakable. Ellie, if you're reading this, our boy found you. I never told you about him because you made your choice. But he deserves to know you. Don't let him down again. The room spun. Eleanor's voice caught. This letter, it's authentic? The bailiff nodded. Verified by handwriting analysis overnight, Your Honor. Hargrove, the Clark's lawyer, leapt up. This is irrelevant. The custody case isn't about paternity, it's about stability. The Clarks have provided a superior environment. Superior. Lena snapped, standing. You mean white? My grandson ain't a charity case for rich folks to parade. He's family. The gallery erupted. She's right, a black woman shouted. Give him back. A white man countered. The Clarks gave him a future. Eleanor banged her gavel. Order. Her eyes met Marcus's. Why bring this up now, Marcus? 'Cause I'm tired, he said, voice cracking. Tired of being passed around. Tired of people deciding my life without a skin me. You're my mom. You owe me the truth. The word mom hit like a bullet. Eleanor's composure cracked. I didn't know you existed, she said, her voice raw. If I had, I'd have fought for you. Liar! A voice yelled from the gallery. Prove it! Another shouted. Hargrove seized the moment. Your Honor, you're compromised. Recuse yourself. Eleanor's jaw tightened. I will not. This court will determine the truth. She turned to Marcus. What do you want, Marcus? Tell me. Marcus looked at Lena, then the Clarks, then back at Eleanor. I want to be seen, not as a black kid or a foster kid or a problem. Just me. I want my family, real family. Lena's tears fell. The Clarks shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Clark whispered, "We love him," but her voice lacked conviction. Eleanor called a recess to review the letter and photo. In her chambers, she ordered a DNA test expedited. The results would take hours, but the truth was already unraveling her. She'd spent years building a career on fairness, yet here she was, part of a system that had failed a boy who might be her son. Back in court, the DNA results arrived. The bailiff handed Eleanor the sealed envelope. Her hands shook as she opened it. Positive. Marcus was hers. The gallery sensed the shift. Whispers grew louder. Eleanor stood, her voice trembling but clear. This court has confirmed that Marcus Tate is my biological son. Gasps rippled through the room. Lena clutched Marcus, sobbing. The Clarks looked defeated. Hargrove stammered, "This changes nothing legally." "It changes everything," Eleanor said. "I'm stepping down from this case to avoid bias. But before I do, I want to address this court." She looked at Marcus. "I didn't know you existed, but that's no excuse. I failed you. This town, this system, failed you. We've let race and money cloud what matters. A child's right to love and truth." She turned to the gallery. "Willow Creek is broken. We judge each other before we listen. Marcus deserves better. We all do." The room was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Eleanor recused herself and a new judge was assigned. Over the next weeks, the case took a new turn. Lena was granted custody, but the Clarks, humbled, offered support not as saviors, but as allies. Eleanor, no longer a judge in Marcus's eyes, began rebuilding a bond with him, one honest conversation at a time. Marcus thrived with Lena, his sharp mind blooming in a home filled with love, not charity. Willow Creek didn't heal overnight, but Marcus's truth sparked change. Community meetings began, raw and messy, where black and white residents faced their biases. The handwritten "No Truth Shatters Silence" remained on the courtroom gavel rest, a reminder of a boy who demanded to be seen. Years later, Marcus, now a teenager, stood at a town hall, his voice strong. "I didn't want to divide us. I wanted us to see each other. Truth ain't easy, but it's all we got." The crowd listened, some nodding, others wrestling with discomfort. The question lingered, what does justice look like when trust is broken? Share your thoughts. Where do right and wrong collide in a community torn by prejudice?